tonight I am going to be speaking to the glorious Abigail James, who is a holistic skincare expert. And she has been referred to in the press as the Beyonce of skincare. Dunno. She has magic hands and is a skin genius. And she's quoted as saying, the key to skin confidence is a combination of effective treatments, great skincare, balance, happiness, and mental wellness. It is so wonderful to see you, Abigail, who's my neighbour.
We are literally neighbours. Lee, thank you for inviting me. That was a big intro. Thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, absolute pleasure. And thank you everybody for joining. Seeing lots of lovely waves on here. Thank you so much. This is the first in a new series. You would have, for any of you that don't know me and our Abigail's fan club, then I am Lee Pycroft. I started my career as a makeup artist, and I'm also a registered psychotherapist. I'm a true believer that if we take care of our outside with some rituals, skincare, makeup, and learn tools for emotional balance, we can be headed towards feeling good inside and out. So welcome. What prompted you to get into skincare and why you've taken such a holistic route? Can you tell me a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, sure. So I actually started off in the family food business, as in my parents' family was frozen food. And I was always told that that's what you're going to do. So I did. And I kind of embraced it. But I had my first child when I was 23. I got married very young and had Georgia when I was 23.
23, wow.
I know. By today's standards, that's just unheard of. Yeah. And I had severe postnatal depression, and just the brain was not functioning enough to bring up baby and go back to the job that I was doing. So as part of my kind of healing process, I did some courses. One of those was millinery. I learned how to be a milliner, so I could make you a fabulous, I don't know whether I could still make you a fabulous wedding hat.
That skill's in there still somewhere though. Yeah, go on.
It is. But I realized that actually if I wanted to make a career, that's a little bit of a dying trade and probably not something that I could, actually make a career out of. So a friend of mine at the time was a beauty therapist, and she used to come around and she'd do my nails and tanning and facials and massage. And I just loved what she did. And I got so much out of it beyond the beauty, just so much more. And so then I went down that rabbit hole and I studied beauty therapy as a starting point. 2 nights a week for 2 years, while my daughter, and then I went on to have other children as well while they were little. And that's when this journey began. And I got geeky about what's in our products. I went through a phase of wanting to be an osteopath, but suddenly I did. I use osteopaths frequently for my own body. But I soon realized, as a young mum with young children, going back to university, A, I couldn't afford it, and B, the time-wise wasn't. So I figured that's not my journey. So I studied a lot. I studied sports massage as an interim.
Interesting, yeah.
And lymphatics and Thai and Ayurvedic, and then started progressing more into face and skin. So I've got quite a big backlog. If I showed you a catalogue of training certificates, it's huge and really varied. Yeah. But now that I focus more on skin, there's a well-being aspect, even though I'm using peels and lasers and things and hands-on. I think all that back history of training, it forms how you then kind of approach. Probably appreciate this, that even though someone might find you they find me for skin and face, you go through the consultation and you build up a rapport, and other things unravel, and whether it's emotional or physical, and you've got a back catalogue of, I'm not a trained psychotherapist like you, but I've got little bits of knowledge and things that add to what I'm doing, that I like to be able to support people in a more complete way, and also learn where I've learned where my skill set ends and where I benefit from referring to nutritionists, psycho, therapists, and other people as well, because I know that the skin is presenting for a number of different reasons. And it's not just, well, let's change your skincare and ta-da, we're done. It's a much bigger thing than that.
Yes. So that actually leads me into another question I have for you, in that I often talk about, stress is a physiological response we have to stressors, right? Stressors are in the environment, something we, like a physical event or something we're thinking about that we don't like, and creates this sort of generic response, which is the stress response. And of course, when it comes to how that's expressed in skin, if someone's going through emotionally challenging time, what have you seen most of recently obviously you haven't been able to see people face to face for a while, but I don't know if you're doing online. What have you seen now, and what have you seen historically? How does it manifest for people in their skin?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because stress can manifest itself in so many different ways, physically, the whole body. And for some people, not everyone, for some people, the skin seems to be a real indicator. It's an external, it's not for everybody. For example, myself, it's my gut, that I know that's my stress response. Whereas if someone is going to respond with their skin, it could be breakouts. It could be sensitivity. And then there's the cliche dark circles, skin's just lacking luster and dull. So it can present in so many different ways.
And is that because when the body is going through this physiological response, and we have this release of a chemical cocktail, that the energy is being drawn away from the skin, because the skin's considered a luxury. It's going more towards, your heart rate, towards your muscles. If that's on a chronic basis, not on obviously a short-term basis, which actually can be quite therapeutic, can't it, if it's in the short term. But if it's a chronic sort of state of sort of alert, if you like.
So yes, but that's obviously the fight or flight response. That we can almost constantly on a low level be exposed to. I think even
problematic, isn't it?
We're just sort of, naturally our lives are just so much faster paced than they ever were before. I think there's that type of stress, and then there's just, I don't know, stress that seems to be around us all the time. And it's not absolutely where the body is then directing blood flow and everything else to other organs. It goes into that, right, I need to protect the vital organs. And skin, unfortunately, is not considered one of those by the body. But there's the other huge impact of the impact on our hormonal makeup. And the skin is so closely connected to hormone balance. And if we think of increased aging when we're stressed, cortisol, which is one of the main stress hormones, cortisol physically destroys collagen fibers. So it is physically aging us. And then with that check, because I always like to see our hormones as like a load of test tubes, that ideally it's all nice and balanced. But if one kind of hormone goes through the roof, like cortisol, all the others are suddenly going, oh my goodness, I'm still trying to balance out equilibrium. And with that obviously is going to have an impact on estrogen, progesterone, and other things. And those are the ones, and the male hormones, that are so closely connected to then oil production in our skin. So there's so many factors when it comes to what the skin is going to do when we're stressed or under constant low level anxiety or stress. And
it's interesting that you were saying how it manifests in some people in their skin when they've had this low level sort of stress, but in you were saying it's your stomach. And I often sort of say to people, it's like with anxiety, it can be expressed in some people like as anxiety when they get stressed, and other people they get backache or a skin condition. So anxiety is another sort of way of stress manifesting, you know. So what would you say that people could do in terms of what we see sort of now, and certainly I sort of see with my one-to-one clients, there's still this sort of emotional hangover from the pandemic and the state of the prolonged uncertainty that people have had to grapple with. And that's hard on our nervous system, although we like to think we're more certain of things than we actually are. But this prolonged uncertainty where we couldn't get our emotional needs met in the usual ways that we did has been really hard for people. But what would you say in terms of rituals that you have found beneficial for your clients and you personally, people could use, practical kind of tools in terms of a skincare ritual that would be helpful? Because I know you do a lot with massage, you do a lot with your hands, which I think has a hugely therapeutic benefit to it, that sort of form of touch. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think rituals is a good thing. I think as humans, we like routine and rituals. There's something comforting in that, whatever that might be.
Certainty.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's morning or evening, or if you're working from home, maybe your time, your moment is halfway through the day. You know, I'm often asked, when is the best time to do my skincare routine or face massage? It's whatever is best for you. That's kind of the easiest answer. And yeah, I think, you know, using good quality skincare, cleanse, serums, moisturizers, masks. Masks are a nice way to feel like you're nurturing yourself as well as making the skin look great. But face massage, it's so easily accessible, sorry.
Accessible, yeah. It's very acceptable too.
It is very acceptable. But, you know, it's your hands, your face. Whether you use a cream cleanser or an oil or like a mask that's got a little bit of slip to it, there's lots of different things that you can massage with. And it doesn't have to be a full-on half an hour shebang, which you could do, but just taking 5 minutes, your face will look better. It has an immediate impact. I've recently done a TikTok actually with literally, I sometimes wake up with quite a puffy face, and I did a 5-minute quick face massage. And just 5 minutes, there's an instant response. And that in itself, we look better, but we feel better because we look better. You know, there's so many
two-way
ways.
Conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. The other thing actually about routines, and this is something that I experienced today, and I know the kind of questions that we were probably going to delve into. And I had totally got out of the routine of listening to music, because I would plug in on my commutes. And you'd kind of go out the front door and you'd stick on some banging tunes and get ready for the day, and it would lift your emotions. And I haven't been doing that during COVID, and I didn't realize. I was in town today and I did exactly that, and I'd suddenly got a spring in my step, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, I've got this today. And I hadn't realized how much something as simple as that made such a massive difference to my mood and actually my whole day, because it had, you know, raised my vibration,
your emotional state. And also it's interesting because music we often have strong associations with, and it's one of the quickest ways to change your emotional state. You know, we'll often associate it with, you know, you put on your favorite disco tune or something and it will be associated with memories. That's why if you listen to a sad piece of music where you had an horrendous breakup, you know, it could bring you down that avenue as well. But it's a really quick and free way of shifting. It's interesting though, isn't it, Abigail? Because that was a small thing that made a big difference to you, but how quickly we can all forget about a sort of an emotional toolkit, if you like, that we can have to know what we need to pull out when going through a particular challenge or when feeling a bit off on a particular
I'm a huge
day?
fan of, I know it's a cliche, but baths, even if it's in the middle of the day, I'm drawn to water. Yeah, if I'm stressed or anxious or just struggling with stuff, I like walking by water, whether it's a lake, a river. I don't live near the sea, but I just find that particularly therapeutic. And when I look back at stressful periods in my life, I've ended up bathing, that's the better word, even during the day. And again, it feels quite decadent, but for me, it's just a space where, I don't know, it's as if I'm literally getting my ducks in a row, and there's a craving to be near water. So I know we wouldn't naturally think of having a bath in the middle of the day. Why not? Absolutely,
but why not? I mean, it's interesting because the metaphor of kind of cleansing away, whatever's going on for a person, which can be an interesting sort of way of looking at it. But what would, in terms of, given the title of the series, Hope, Healing and Lipstick being the metaphor for the fun part, we spoke a little bit about healing, but what does hope mean to you? And when have you had to cultivate hope most? Because I think we all need a bit of hope.
Hope is a lovely concept. And hope is having a dream. Hope is a positive mindset. Hope isn't, it's not a physical thing. It's in here. It's having something to look forward to strive to. I've had many a time in my life where hope, let's call it hope, I've had to dig deep. And I know we've touched on this when we've kind of chatted previously, but I've had some very, I'm going to say, dark, stressful times throughout my life, with depression, anxiety, panic attacks, single parenting.
Know that one, yes.
Spending a number of years on benefits, and you need hope. And I think it's a dream. It is a mindset. I don't know how else to explain it. Don't get me wrong. You go through phases where you're just effing and jeffing and can't see the light, but it's hope that gets you through that.
That's the golden thread that gets you towards hope. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's so interesting. And I think it's so heartwarming because to express that part of life, because I think we can be so sort of blinded by edited highlights of what is going on in someone's life. And social media, I think there's brilliant things about social media, don't get me wrong, but like anything, we've never before in the world been able to socially compare like we do now and like we can now. And that can be really difficult. And to be able to see how someone looks from the outside and actually hear, well, actually, these are human challenges. There's nothing, I've been the same as you, been through an awful period of depression years ago as a single parent and so forth. But many, many people have. And I think the more we can open up these conversations and normalize what is sometimes human suffering, then the more we can learn tools to help pull each other out and to pull ourselves out, because a lot of it is environmental. Sometimes we can't get our needs met in the environment. And so I often sort of liken depression to a flat battery. There's nothing wrong with anybody. It's just the batteries run flat because we're exhausted emotionally and physically. What's wrong with me? What's happened in my environment? What's happened to me or what's happening that, I need to. In those times, Abigail, when it was really challenging to find hope, what would be things that you would do for yourself to sort of weave that golden thread of hope and sort of see, actually, there's a thread, I'm going to grab that, and that's going to help me, pull me towards this dream, this sort of way of being that's going to move me forwards again? How would you kind of get that hook, if you like, get that first thread?
I think I've learned that it is okay to fall apart.
Mm.
It's okay to be sad, to be angry, to feel hopeless.
Yeah.
Got to give yourself a time limit on that, if you can. There's different kind of, I can talk about, so when I was suffering from clinical depression, you can't necessarily identify, and I needed to get professional help and medication. Because it didn't matter what anybody said to me. When you're in that mindset, you can't get out of that mindset, and I needed help. And I suppose my hope was actually saying, I need help.
Yes.
And admitting I have a problem. I am not well at the moment. And not seeing that as a weakness. And, you know, then the hope was opening up, and that's that glimmer of hope. Okay, we're going to progress from here. Whereas there's other times where it's been stress and anxiety and just kind of struggling with life. And that's where, like I said, I allow myself to, it's Netflix in bed. It's kind of, if I want to cry, I'm going to cry, and I'm going to get angry. I write things down. I'm a huge writer.
Journaler.
Get it out of here onto paper, and then allow yourself that time, and then you've got to go. Come on, go. Let's do this. And you might then be good for whether it's a day, a week, a month. And it's also accepting that it's okay to kind of to trip up again. And you've got to keep having that mentality of, right, come on, we can do this. You know, life is such a gift. I've got to keep striving.
It's that kind of internal narrative as well that I think can be incredibly helpful. It's the sort of, in the language we use, can create an emotional response, you know. And if we're brutal with ourselves or self-deprecating, or the inner critic is starting up, but being able to you know, have that sort of sense of self-compassion and use, you know, language that will help soothe yourself. You know, often I'll sort of have 3 words I'll say to myself, like, you know, calm, grounded, safe in my body, something like that. Because often if anxiety's high, you know, people will often not feel safe in their body. Or certainly when I've grappled with anxiety, you know, a while back, I wouldn't feel safe in my body. So that can be really, really soothing. Or if someone's gone through something very traumatic and maybe has PTSD, they certainly won't feel safe in their body, you know. So it's like having that kind of, almost those words that resonate with an individual can be hugely soothing.
So when I think it was probably the first time I suffered from depression, my father actually sent me off to see a hypnotherapist. And some of the words that I were ingrained in me, and I still use them today: cool, calm, collected, confident, and courageous.
And the great thing about the hypnotherapy is, because often sort of people think hypnotherapy is sort of a bit woo-woo, you know, it's sort of all, not sure about that, but it's just simply a state of focused attention which allows you to absorb new ideas in a relaxed state. And so that's lovely. Still now you're able to tap into that and have that kind of response to those words that takes you back from when you used them, and it was used in the hypnotherapy sessions.
Stuck with me throughout my life. And the thing is, I think with, let's call it an umbrella of mental health. Even though, you know, I know and practice and advise a lot of these methods, it doesn't mean that I'm totally, you know, got it on point constantly. We all keep having to, this is our toolkit. That throughout life we have to reach for and use throughout our lives.
Absolutely,
you know,
100%. 100%. And I think it's interesting because sort of having become a therapist, and obviously I have to have a sort of supervisor and that kind of thing. But I think what I've learned with all the tools that I have is, if I go through a challenging period, I just come out of it quicker, because I know what to do. I know the signs. I think I know to check in with myself. I think, okay, I know not to go down that road. I know I have a robust sort of toolkit and people around me, that a community that I can get support from, and I know about emotional needs. So I think it's that thing, as you say, it's not that you don't go down into a groove, but you just come out with a bit more easily, I would say.
Yes, I think you can be kinder or gentler with yourself, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And in
Yeah.
terms of play, like lipstick,
Yeah.
what is your play apart from the music? Apart from,
Oh, I love to dance.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love to dance, and I don't do enough of it.
Mm.
You know, on a night out, you can literally just wind me up and off I go. And I will be the last man standing. No, I used to be the last man standing. Now I'm probably the first one to go, right, I'm done now. It's 9 o'clock. It's way past my
Exactly.
bedtime.
It's 9:30. It's time to go to bed. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I like foolishness.
Humor. Yeah,
Yeah, humor is
yeah,
so important.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you know, it doesn't matter what situation, bizarrely, there's always a little bit of humor to be had out of situations.
yeah,
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 so humor, dancing, silliness,
yeah,
they're kind of, yeah, key elements of
yeah.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I often sort of think of sort of life a bit like a pie chart, and whereas I used to sort of go through a challenge and it would sort of ripple into every area of my life, and now it's being able to sort of think, okay, that's really challenging in that section of the pie, and what else have I got in the pie that is really of value and that I can spend some time focusing on or replenishing myself with, and even taking it down to small moments, like you said, actually the word glimmers earlier, where sometimes when things are really challenging, just looking for those glimmers, those moments, you know, a sunset, coffee with a friend, is small, 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 because we live in a world of big transformations. Everyone wants something now and wants it big, but actually it's sometimes those small and very accessible things that we can access every day and do every day that will keep us
Another thing
buoyant.
I love doing actually is doing something outside of your comfort zone. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was cold swimming in the sea in a swimsuit. You know, of course, I wouldn't actually choose to do that, but I loved it, and it's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. I have an old neighbour, and she's a member of an art group, and she invited me to a lunch, and there was, I don't know, I think 12 of us around the table, mature ladies, I'm going to say, you know, a wealth of knowledge and skill. And
wisdom.
and wisdom, exactly, and just creativity. It was hilarious. But I found, because I was the newbie to this group of ladies, and I found myself by the end of this lunch almost being nominated to be a naked model for them. And I'm like, okay, well, I could do that. No, I haven't. I'm kind of almost waiting for an invite or something. But I was kind of like, well, it's something I've never done before, but okay.
But hey,
I could do. But it's kind of those things that, you know, without doing anything dangerous, but that are just pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone slightly. Okay, well, why not? Let's give it a go. It could be fun.
And that in fact is very confidence building, because I always sort of think of confidence is a learnable skill. You know, someone who's not confident in an area, it's just they haven't developed the skills necessary to be confident in that area, or they haven't practiced the skills that they learned a while ago enough. You know, and it's that tolerating and accommodating the uncertainty that comes with being slightly out of your comfort zone, of not quite knowing how something's going to turn out. But the difference between someone who's confident and someone who's not is the person who's confident in their abilities. So whatever the outcome, they know they'll be okay, because they, you know, if it's not the outcome they want, they know they'll actually be okay. Nothing's going to happen really horrendous is going to happen. Whereas someone who's perhaps more anxiety prone will be thinking about all the terrible things that will happen. But it's being able to sort of cradle the uncertainty and work with it, you know.
My younger self would have never done it. I'd have been, you know, so self-conscious. But you get to a point that your body changes and going through menopause and all, it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? You know,
Yeah,
so
you kind of care less in a very helpful way. You know, it's that kind
yeah.
of radical self-acceptance, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
of yeah, absolutely. Oh, Abigail, it's been so joyful talking to you, and thank you so much for sharing some time. Love to you, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.